Welcome back, everyone, to the Vikings Playbook Podcast. Your Sunday starts here with us, as always, and I'm your host, Steve Hoikkala. We have another great show prepared for you this week. This coming weekend, we won't have a show. I'm able to do it this weekend with my special guest that I'll have on today. And actually, next Tuesday, I have a really special podcast again with you. So it's back-to-back Tuesdays. So this week, I'll actually have the CEO of Skol Marketing on with me today. And if you have never seen him on social media before, Ben's an active, avid Vikings fan. And you can follow Ben on social media at Skol Ben Theis, and on X, their company, Skol Marketing, at Skol Marketing, located there in Hopkins, Minnesota. You can follow them also on their website, skolmarketing.com. So he's my special guest for today. And then next week, really exciting stuff. I'm going to have former Vikings quarterback Kyle Sloter on the podcast. So really exciting stuff. I'm excited to have both Ben on this week and Kyle next week. So a couple of big shows, really exciting stuff. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and welcome to the stage my guest for today, Ben. Ben, how are we doing?
We're doing really good. Yeah, thanks for having me today. So, no, it's exciting. Obviously, it's kind of the lull of the football season, if you will, but nothing's ever completely at zero, and so a lot of exciting kind of things coming up and going on business wise, fan wise, everything like that. So,
And for those of my listeners out there, if you have never met Ben before, the very first impressions I had when I met you in person, even before I even got to Skol Marketing, I actually saw him driving his car on the highway, which I love your car. He is a very Vikings fanatic. I wish I was able to decorate even my household in Vikings memorabilia like your office is. I absolutely love it.
yeah.
But yeah, Ben, you're a huge Vikings fan. Not only is the company that you and Marty that you guys started back in 2012, not only is it named Viking themed Skol Marketing, but you guys have a lot to do, not just with the community, other local businesses, but then you guys also give back to the community in a special way with Vikings players and connecting Vikings Legends with the community. Tell us a little bit about Skol Marketing, what you guys do there initially.
Yeah. So Marty and I's background is both of us used to work at Google. So I will say for the majority until about 2020, we predominantly just worked with small businesses or small organizations here in Minnesota or the Midwest, helping them with Google things. So if that was websites, getting leads, doing all of that kind of fun stuff. Or around 2020 is when we actually started working with former professional athletes, i.e., essentially Viking players, and then doing the same thing for them that we were able to do kind of with the business community and being able to kind of connect into the community better and kind of creating experiences or creating connection points. So it really kind of started. The first person that we ever started working with was Chuck Foreman. It was kind of funny because Chuck Foreman was hired as a spokesperson for one of Skol Marketing's kind of clients. And really how this all started was, I was obviously assigned that, again, to Chuck because we were running this company's marketing for them. And Chuck and I just kind of hit it off. We, again, he's very entrepreneurial. I'm very entrepreneurial. I have several other businesses. And so it was kind of just a cool thing going back and forth. And to also just add some other cool factors is, of course, we all grew up going to, training camp in Mankato. And so I used to see Chuck every single year. He was actually my dad's favorite player. So growing up, of course, like I knew, and just being, again, the diehard,
Same.
myself. Yeah. So it's just really kind of cool. And so him and I kept, hitting it off. And so I asked him one point too, I said, well, Chuck, I know you always go to training camp because I see you there every time and I stop at your booth even, but I know that that's not going to be a thing this year because of 2020, because of COVID. What are you going to do now? And he's like, well, Ben, honestly, I don't know. And so I pitched him ideas like, hey, why don't we partner up? Why don't we take what you were doing offline and put that online? Why don't we create a website? And then I can help you understand social media. You still kind of, maybe essentially come up with the content or work with you on getting that messaging out. And then I can help you actually put it out there. And we can kind of create a model where you win, I win, I win, you win. And we can also start to get you reconnected to a fan base from your days, and then also introduce you to new fan bases and not just be necessarily around here in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in order to see Chuck, you had to kind of be in Mankato. And so that's really where it kind of all started. And then I was very blessed that Chuck was able to refer me to Carl Eller and then Paul Krause and Tommy Kramer, and the list just kept growing.
And it's very cool how, like, for what you do in marketing, and I'm very aware with it too, with networking. And it's crazy how even just you and I got to know each other a little bit, and that was also through the relationship you had with Chuck Foreman and one of the signing events that you guys helped to set up. That's actually how I initially uh got to at least know Chuck in person. And
Yep.
that ended up spurring into an interview with Chuck and him connecting me with you guys, and uh, awesome stuff that you guys are doing at Skol Marketing. And I got the opportunity to actually come and visit you guys and use your studio, which you guys were kind enough to let me use
Yeah.
at Skol Marketing. So really cool. It's the same stage or the same studio that you guys also host the Jim Bob Sports Jamboree. So which Chuck is also a weekly guest on. So you guys got Jim Rich from Fox, Bob Sansevier, and then superstar Mike Morris on. That's hosted right there in your guys' studio. So you guys have a fantastic area that I was able to use. And so you guys are doing some big things with, you know, I know that Tommy Kramer's one of your guys' ones. I know I just saw an event that I wanted to go golfing at where they've been doing some events where they had I think they had 9 or 10 different former sports athletes, Vikings, and then they had
Yep.
also former Viking at one period of time, and Bear there too. But just awesome events that you guys are helping to set up, and that's helping connect fans like myself with those superstars that we either grew up watching, our dads grew up watching. Chuck Foreman was my dad's favorite player. But yeah, you guys are doing some great things there over at Skol Marketing, where it's not just Vikings Sports Legends, but you guys are also assisting other businesses in the community to help get connected, to get seen, and some cool things out there. So if you're a business looking to connect with other vendors, customers, definitely check out Skol Marketing. Again, skolmarketing.com. Go ahead and check that out. But the other thing I want to get into, and I wrote an article just this last week, so I also write for purpleptsd.com, but one of the biggest articles that I wanted to write, I got to come to your guys' studio back in February, and I was kind of waiting for this lull.
Yep.
So now we have the break between minicamp and training camp. And we talked about this before, but Chuck Foreman, it's an absolute travesty that he's not already in the Hall of Fame. He belongs in there. My article kind of talks a little bit about some of his stats and some of the reasonings why I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. But you guys have done a really good job in trying to highlight some of the things that you've done. And you guys have worked with people like Sports Legends USA in creating videos that highlight some of his accolades and reasonings why he should also be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, just you guys have really been on the forefront of that, and kind of some of the stuff that spells out in my article is not just talking about the accolades and the stats and how he has better stats than others that are in the Hall of Fame, and how he was a better back in his time, fullback even, leading the league in receptions, 1973 Rookie of the Year. He finished third in MVP voting in 1974, fourth in the year that Fran Tarkenton won MVP. He was fourth in voting in 1975. He really led the league in receiving as a fullback. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And
no, it's pretty crazy. It's, the one thing that I just kind of try to tell people too is, again, so we put together actually these really kind of cool video brochures. So you actually opened them up and it played a video, and we sent them to every Hall of Fame committee voter. And in doing that, it was pulling together on being able to kind of see all these different stats, comparing them to some of the people that are in there with Larry Zonka and just, again, even Floyd Little, and obviously even now Roger Craig, and all these, Franco Harris, like all these other kind of guys he stacked up. Obviously, again, the Super Bowls, again, definitely hurt, again, which always frustrates me because Super Bowls should be
Yeah,
a team award. They
absolutely.
could amplify your case, but the Hall of Fame is an individual award. There aren't teams don't go into, the 1974 Dolphins or the 1979 Vikings aren't going into the Hall of Fame. It's individuals. And that's where sometimes it gets weird that there's this difference. The other word that I don't think gets thrown around as much, and which is unfortunate, and why, honestly, the main core reason I believe Chuck should be in there is the word impact.
Yeah.
Before Chuck did this, like, you can actually, I know you've talked to Chuck, is hearing him get drafted by us and having him sit, again, sat down by the coaches, again, with Bud and those guys, and telling them, hey, we're going to do something with you that's never really been done before. And we know you're not going to get the credit that you deserve, but the whole offense is going to flow because of you, which was a lot of times receiving back. And like, that's just what drives me nuts. I will say one fun thing that we did see, though, is that while Chuck was, like, during his career, especially like the 5 Pro Bowl years, again, there, he would have been a top 3 overall fantasy football draft pick every single year because of his output. So it was kind of cool going into the fantasy football aspect of it, showing impact that way too.
Yeah, and you kind of highlighted it, as far as, Super Bowls, do weigh on voters, but he went to 3 of them, and he was even though that was a really talented team with a lot of big names on there, he was a centerpiece and a reasoning why they were even there 3 additional times. And with Chuck Foreman, again, he played in an era with Walter Payton, O.J. Simpson,
Mm-hmm.
and I talked about him being third in MVP voting ahead of all both of those guys in 1973. Which
Yeah.
means at least and he was in 1975. I want to say O.J. Simpson was number 2, and Chuck Foreman was number 4. But
Mm-hmm.
again, the highlights how good he was, especially in his prime. Uh, early on in his career, he was that impactful in leading the league in receptions. To where actually in his career he had more receptions than Lynn Swann, who's in
Yeah.
the Hall of
Like,
Fame,
that's
a
like,
wide
as a wide
receiver.
receiver. Yeah.
So it's just it's a travesty. And when you take a look at, and I talked about in my piece, just to put it in like millennial terms, because I think that he is a victim of a lot of voters not remembering the past and how, like you said, impactful Chuck Foreman was on the game. There's a reason why, millennials love, and me, I'm kind of like a borderline millennial. And I say millennials, the younger, even younger than you or I. You like the spin move in Madden games. Well, guess what? Chuck Foreman's, part of that reason.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why you have dual threat backs like a Christian McCaffrey, like you had a LaDainian Tomlinson. A lot of that didn't exist in the 70s, where it was a run focused game, but utilizing the backs like Coach Bud Grant decided, like he told Chuck, you're going to be the best at your position, but you're not going to be recognized as the best.
Yep.
And that definitely held true. But at the root of everything, I think that there are a lot of voters that just don't realize, at that time and during the 70s, how dominant Chuck Foreman was. And, you can look at his rush, if you're looking him at as a rusher, still a very good, running back. He was a great running back in the 70s. But when you take a look at also what he was able to do in the receiving, unmatched
Yep.
unmatched in the 70s. And we just talked about there's wide receivers like Lynn Swann that are in the Hall of Fame, but you have better stats from a fullback in Chuck Foreman that was able to, produce better stats and a better impact, and went to, again, 3 Super Bowls. There are individuals in the Hall of Fame that don't have any Super Bowls. So there's the Super Bowl
Correct.
argument. I don't think that holds, shouldn't hold as much weight. And I think 27 is an opportunity to get Chuck in the Hall of Fame if we, as Vikings fans, can rally behind Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest thing that they can do is, see videos like what Sports Legends USA is putting out there, interviews that I've done or articles that I've done,
Mm-hmm.
or even just spreading the news of, all the great things that Chuck has done in his career. Us as Vikings fans, if we want to see Chuck to be able to actually experience and embrace the moment, because there's one part of my interview with Chuck Foreman that really kind of hit home for me, and I know how much it would mean, for
Mhm.
Chuck to be able to be there, but he he wants to be able to, and I want him to be able to be alive to still see it.
Well, yeah, and he talks about that all the time. That again, he gets very frustrated when he sees people go in, again, once they passed, because
Yeah.
it's kind of like, well, what are you doing there? And to go off of too is, it's like, it is kind of funny when I do a lot of these events with Chuck. There's a lot of people that just think he's already in, and so you start to realize when we went through this process how much of a human component there is. Not so much like how much it would necessarily mean to Chuck. That's a human component too,
Yeah.
but even just how human the process, how human the people are that are voting and stuff like this. Like, there are now some younger voters that, again, like, we actually interviewed some of the actual voters, and it was just really kind of disheartening to hear a couple of things of, like, there's not really a process. There's some very, very bleak criteria to
Hmm.
be a Hall of Famer, but it's kind of like you just throw somebody out there, and it sometimes ends up who can yell the loudest and whose team that they originally played for kind of got behind them. Also, there's also so much capacity. Like, one thing that was really disheartening to kind of hear was that, again, unfortunately, again, rest in peace, but, like, Sid Hartman rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Well, that actually affected a lot of Vikings, because there was this human component of, like, well, I don't like that voter, so I'm not going to listen as much to him as, again, there. So people like Chuck, or you could talk about, Ed White, or you see how long it took Carl Eller and Paul Krause and some
Yep.
of these guys to kind of do. And so you just realize that there's a human component. The reason I mentioned that is to go off of what you said, Steve, is that it really does come back when we were talking to some of the voters, and they're like, I hate telling you guys this because it shouldn't be this way, but getting groundswell kind of support from people, like, respectful, excited support, actually makes an impact. And that actually really kind of stuck with me, because I've heard some things before that sometimes, either they can get kind of annoyed, or you don't, be respectful, you want, there. But it was pretty crazy hearing from an actual current voter that's on the, again, Pro Football Hall of Fame kind of committee say that just, again, really emphasizes what you were saying and what we're trying to
Yeah.
do.
There is influence when, the fan base and the organizations really get behind a certain candidate. And I think that's one of the things, one of the questions I did ask Chuck, if the Vikings organization has ever supported a push for him to be in the Hall of Fame. And at least according to Chuck, no, they have not. So
Mhm.
what I would challenge our fan base is to be loud
Yep.
about it, gain the attention of the Vikings organization, to hopefully we can get their PR behind Chuck Foreman this year. Uh, Same with Jim Marshall. I know some of you out
Mhm.
there are pushing for Jim Marshall as well, and I think we can push for them both. But be loud about it. Make sure that the Vikings organization hears what us as fans think is a travesty, and that it
Mhm.
should happen. But we have to make sure that Canton hears us. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we're loud as a fan base, get the organization involved, help support, efforts by, Sports Legends USA and Skol Marketing that are trying to also help make that push for sports legends like Chuck Foreman. So we need to make sure that we're loud about it, guys. We got to
Yep.
get involved if we want to help make this happen. Help me, help Ben. Let's make the push for Chuck to be in the Hall in 2027. So there's that senior committee. He has an opportunity to get in through that, and he made it, I think, to the final, if I'm remembering right, final 32 or
Yep.
16 on this last round.
Yep.
Um, and we
And
just
just so you guys know, is that is the farthest he's ever gotten, because we started doing this. And so it's not just me, it's
Mhm.
not just, again, with Skol and Sports Legends or whatever. We kind of put some of this stuff together, but it actually it's been super cool to kind of see people pushing it out there. And just that, again, amount that we were able to do got him as far as he's ever gone, kind of, again, before. And so that's what I would, like you were saying, Steve, would encourage that. What I
Yeah.
also like to kind of mention too is, look at the video that we put together. You can find all of this on actually Chuck Foreman's website, chuckforeman44.com. And so in looking, again, you can share some of the screenshots, you can share the video, you can share, we actually put a packet together, all of that type of stuff, again, there. Because one of the things that, you mentioned too, Steve, is, again, as the years go by, sometimes there are some of these older, players that get hurt with comparisons to now. Well, we all know, back then there were 14 game season, there were 16 game seasons. Obviously, again, just the way that you ran the ball or caught the ball is just, again, different. So it's like, you can't necessarily just look at everything at face value and compare Chuck to LaDainian Tomlinson's stats right there. Like Chuck always likes to kind of say is that you should almost compare every decade amongst itself a little bit, with some variance, of course. But that's why I get into that. That's why I kind of get into the whole thing of like that impact. But beyond impact, there were some clear stats. You still need stats to get into the hall, and
Right.
Chuck has those.
He absolutely does. So I think the biggest component is getting behind Chuck, getting our voice loud, and I think we can get there. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is obviously, we have training camp coming out, and you're a huge Vikings fan, and I think anyone that's watching this can hear and feel the passion coming out of Ben as well too. So it's always and that's part of why I love doing podcasting like this, and it's connecting with other Vikings fans, writers, players, whatever it may be, and having the opportunity to talk to someone like you, Ben, who's obviously a gigantic fan. So going into training camp, there's some different stories that are this is probably going to be one of the more contested training camps in recent memory, because I think that there are some big positions where there's going to be some huge battles. And I think more probably more important than the quarterback position with JJ McCarthy and Kyler Murray. I've been on the Vikings fandom is split in half. It's you're either, we haven't seen this since Kirk was here, but you absolutely have the Kyler Murray and you got the JJ side, and there's a sliver of us, and I say us, myself, being that where I'm rooting for both of these guys. I want both of them to get better in this entire process, and I'm rooting for one of these guys to actually take the reins and be successful in this offense, not just for 26, but also in the future. So I hope that we have both of these quarterbacks even after training camp. But what are your thoughts on the JJ McCarthy, Kyler Murray? We and just so I lead up into this, as both of those guys were in minicamp, we heard from the relationship thing, as far as he sits on one side, I sit on the other side from JJ. We heard, because he was asked the question, Kyler Murray was asked the question about, what's maybe the hardest part, and he talked about splitting reps. And we've heard that in minicamp, he's thrown a few interceptions, while he's trying to learn this offense. But he hasn't had the opportunity to use his legs yet, which, a lot of it was 7-on-7. In training camp, we're going to get a lot more 11-on-11. But what are your thoughts on the quarterback competition and what you hope to see at training camp? Because I'm guessing you're probably going to go out to training camp one of these days, right?
Yep. I usually go with some of the guys to help them with the autograph signings. But no, I think honestly, I'm with you. And I think if we all were to put it down, again, put all of our, opinions down, it's like at the end of the day, I don't think any of us would care if it's Max Brosner bringing us the Lombardi trophy. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? We just want the, again, Super Bowl. We are a very passionate, jaded, I'll even say, starved kind of fan base. So this is kind of what happens. And so I honestly want the best, again, man that wins. And if I had to obviously put my money on it, yes, I'm going to say Kyler, Megan as well. I'm just also not ready to give up also on JJ. I know that's been said a lot. I know a lot of people are, in a sense, like the one part that I just really eats at me a little bit with JJ though, is that we'll talk about Sam Darnold, rightfully so. We all love Sam, but Sam took 5 years to figure it out. And yet those same people that are going back to that are saying, well, after 10 games, we're done with JJ. It's like, in my opinion, you can't have it both ways. You can't have one guy took 5 years, one guy took 10. Yes, now injuries were an unfortunate, and I will say JJ's kind of used up all of his kind of goodwill, or, again, your lives like in a video game, like you got to get out there and do it. But I do think, like, here's the one thing that I think some people are kind of missing too, is that, again, Kyler has not started a full game, full season since 2020. So the odds are very high, again, there that he's going to miss some games. So JJ is going to get some opportunities, I feel like, if Kyler wins the starting, again, quarterback position, to actually get out there and show what he's got. So it'll be really interesting to see at the end of the year of looking at Kyler and then looking again kind of at JJ. Now, again, if Kyler goes out and has another Darnold season, well, I think, again, I doubt that we're going to try to get into, make another situation where we're trying to force something. The worst case scenario for me is that Kyler gets out there and looks just okay, and you're trying to project maybe another kind of level plus the injury. And then depending on how JJ looked in those games, again, out there. So honestly, I'm fascinated with it. Like I said, I do think that Kyler is going to, again, most likely get the job just because he is a very talented there. But, again, he's not a perfect quarterback. Neither is JJ, of course, again, when we come into that. And so it will be really interesting, too, is I will say, though, I've been seeing a lot of things since, again, Kyler kind of made that comment of, again, the reps thing. And it's like, again, I get that, but at the same point, you got to deal with the reps that you get. And honestly, you could be, if KOC was just like, well, we got to try to give the reps to the best person there. Well, you're just guesstimating. You have to let them go out there and prove it. It's just kind of funny because I don't see the same type of argument made for, when we've got wide receiver battles and, tackle battles. And I'm not dogging Kyler for what he said. He was just being honest. It's, again, of course, in this day and age, we just dissect every little thing from a body language to this, to that, to this. From it. So again, I'm very excited. I expect kind of Kyler to win, but I also expect Kyler, if I had to guess, to miss 3, 4, or 5 games. And I think JJ has a great opportunity, and I think he's got a great attitude with it. Again, JJ is a great competitor. So is Kyler. And let's be honest, it's kind of cool also to have Kyler be a, again, lifelong Vikings fan. We have Carson Wentz, who is also a Vikings fan. We have we have got some cool storylines here. And honestly, I was all for bringing Carson back, even when it was there, because here's the other thing too, is remember 2023, we played 4 quarterbacks. Last year, we played 3 quarterbacks. So just, it's unfortunate, but the likelihood of just going back after, again, past experience is that we're going to end up playing more than one quarterback, unfortunately.
Man, I just wrote about Carson Wentz being the right decision to bring him back. Everything you're saying about Kyler and JJ is going to have an opportunity, I feel, as well. It almost seems like you have been listening week in, week out to what I've been saying. And that's cool that we're jiving in the same page. I like to see alternate views of it as well too. But I'm on the same page with you, Ben. I mean, I really think JJ, if he's not named the starter, I still feel like he needs to be ready, because I think he's going to get the chance. I think he's going to get the opportunity. It's been a while since we've seen Kyler Murray finish a season healthy and play all 17 games. So he's got to be ready. And at the same time, let's just say both get nicked up like what we saw last year. Carson Wentz has to be ready as well too. And just in case one of these guys decides, I'm not named the starter, and I fully expect it to be Kyler Murray, but let's just say it's not. One of these guys or Kyler Murray could say, well, I don't want to be here anymore. Mm-hmm. And, Ben Lieber has talked about it on KFAN as well, too. And just, we very well could see one of these guys demand a trade. And if that's the case, thank goodness we have Carson Wentz. And if that's not the case, because I truly feel, if the battle's close and Kyler starts, I don't think you have trade value at that point for JJ McCarthy. You're maybe, as been talked about, maybe we're hopeful to even get a 5th round pick.
And it's almost like that point, why? Because they still got so much, but again, we keep forgetting that he was the youngest guy coming out, you know what I mean? Like, he is like super young. And obviously I think we can all look back, and the biggest mistake that I see that we made is we thought mental reps were going to equate to physical reps when he got hurt that first season. And I also will say too, is it's like, to give JJ just a little bit of credit, that when he got that initial knee injury, people kind of forget is he could have had it trimmed and came back later that year. The Vikings were the ones that tried to convince him just to say, hey, we want to look for your long-term kind of thing to kind of shut you down. Then last year, yes, like it's just unfortunate, but I'm saying there are some layers here. I even go back to the Darnold thing. Again, we all love Darnold, but what drives me nuts too is, you know what I mean? Again, the same people that are saying like we were so stupid to let him walk, even if it's national pundits, were the same people that were screaming like, this is why you can't re-sign the guy because he can't win in big
After
games.
the
And I'll
Rams.
say,
Yep.
exactly. And I'll say too, is there were only two people that offered him a contract. One was the Vikings, one were the Seahawks. If everyone else was so smart, they would have offered Darnold another contract. And on top of it, I think right now his APY, or again, what he's getting paid is like in the teens or something like that, around 16. So I'm saying, like, I get it. Yes, we all wish we could go back and have a crystal ball, but you know what I mean? That's not the way life goes. And so we got to kind of look at some of the data and look at, going forward. So,
and I think Kyler Murray's going to dictate a lot of this.
Mhm.
Depending on how healthy he stays and how well he plays, how the season ends is going to dictate if JJ McCarthy remains on this team, if he gets traded, and
Mhm.
JJ's performance when he does get into the game, how he performs is going to um, either result in how much trade value we get or whether or not he's the guy that comes back in 27. So both
Yep.
of these guys still control their future. And in my opinion, there's no guarantee that Kyler Murray is going to, even if he has a great year, there's no guarantee that he signs here, even though he grew up as a Vikings fan. There's no guarantee that, depending on how everything turns out, there's no guarantee that we have him in 27, he re-signs here long term, or that the Vikings are comfortable providing him the contract that he wants
Yep.
after whatever type of season he has. So
And like, that's a great point too.
keeping JJ McCarthy is insurance that you at least potentially have a guy that's developing, hopefully getting better, as reports we have heard from from minicamp, and layering the ball and mechanics and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Hopefully he continues to ascend. So if
Yep.
that's the case, we're probably going to end up around the same position we were draft wise. Worst case scenario, right? Worst case
Yep.
scenario, we're probably drafting the same. Best case scenario, we're in the playoffs. We're a little bit higher. We're not getting one of the top quarterbacks. So by
Yep.
keeping JJ McCarthy, we have that. And if Kyler resigns here, he does great. And you saw JJ a little bit, you probably have a little bit more leverage in any kind of trade deal next offseason before the draft.
Yep. And again, like, yeah, it's just like, let's see how it plays out. I just, again, the people that are writing JJ off, I just sometimes have to remind myself that, again, when people sometimes are reactionary, are, again, sometimes an opinion that I don't care, it's all about passion. So we share the same passion. Like, I have actually talked about this, like, in sports marketing and sports management. I remember talking about this in college, that there was actually a course that we were talking about, like, sports psychology and how it flowed into kind of marketing, and how a team would much rather have actually a lot of fans saying bad things and getting all riled up in a sense, or just always upset, than saying
Sure.
nothing and have apathy, because it shows that you're kind of passionate. I just have to remind myself that if you guys go back and look, there was a lot of our fan base that said we should cut Darisaw because he didn't start until halfway through the season because he was injured. We should cut, again, Will Riker because he got hurt. So we have to remember that sometimes we might be a little overreactionary, but that's what makes this all fun. So
Absolutely. Rap. I saw you say Skol. Rap's in the house. I appreciate that as well too. Hey guys, I talked about it, a lot of different articles. Ben and I, some of the stuff I'm writing about, Ben and I are on the same page here. But if you want to check out more Vikings news, make sure that you're checking out purpleptsd.com. A lot of great writers that we have over there. Check out Vikings News Daily over there. Ben, what other different training camp stories or positional battles are getting you excited?
yeah, I'd say for me, it's going to be, because I also don't know if we have it fully set, but a little bit of the edge rusher, obviously, with trading Jonathan Bernard and then kind of going, obviously, putting Dallas Turner there. I think that leaves us really, really thin,
Yep.
especially since Ginkle and even Blake Cashman being kind of that linebacker group missed some time last year.
Both in
So
their last years.
and that's the other thing too, is both in their last year. Yes, we have Jake Golday, and again, we've got some guys there, but you still don't know. And we're talking about premier kind of guys. So I would say, again, kind of like the edge rusher type of situation, because we all know we're the number one blitzing team in the league. We, again, we're obviously going to like that. And so I'd be kind of curious to see if we're going to bring somebody in. Obviously, I'm a big, again, and Flores kind of in Flores we trust type of stuff. So, but I do think that we could use another veteran, especially since a lot of them are out there right now, to see, again, what that could look like in that regard. And also, again, just one that I'm kind of really curious to see how is going to kind of turn around a little bit too. Maybe if we can just get some things stable, is even just the tight end with just specifically kind of Hawkinson. Now, again, I don't, there's not necessarily a battle in training camp or anything like that, but I just mean it just sucks. 2 years ago we were just looking at like elite level and damn Kirby Joseph there. And it's just been 2 years of that. And so it just is kind of like, is this unfortunately where it's at? Or is it kind of a victim of some of the circumstances? So those are a couple, again, other ones that I'm looking at. And then I'd say even I'd say throwing in the punter situation there a little bit, just kind of curious how that will kind of, with Ryan Wright kind of leaving as well. So.
Yeah, for me, for sure. I want to see how healthy Van Ginkel is able to stay this season. That's big. I want to see the ascension, if you will, of Dallas Turner, if he's ready to take that on. But for me, I really want to see these two individuals, Dominique Orange and Caleb Banks. Now, in my head, I just, just when I picture, Big Citrus, him next to Caleb Banks just really puts in perspective.
Look at that picture.
How big Caleb Banks is. And I can't wait for him to be healthy and on the field. And we're going to get an opportunity to finally see him in action in training camp. I know I'm looking at dates right now to be out there, take my son out there, and possibly my dad too. But I can't wait to see Caleb Banks and see him on the field for the first time. Just seeing how big of a monster of a man he is. I'm excited to see those guys, but I want to see if they're going to have the impact we need them to have in order for our secondary, who we don't know if Harrison Smith is going to be back, which I'm probably going to ask Kyle Sloter next week, who was just golfing with him, maybe the feelings and thoughts that he has. But so next Tuesday, check that out. I want to see if they're going to provide the type of pressure and push to assist with our edge and our secondary, because otherwise, we're not able to provide the type of pressure that we only allowed for the second half of the season, one passing touchdown. Yeah. Brian Flores is going to have to be very creative if for some reason Caleb Banks either A, can't stay healthy, B, those guys are both rookies. So are they ready to have that type of impact in year one? You have Levi Drake Rodriguez potentially starting and getting a ton of reps. Is he ready to take that next step and also show that? We still don't know right now because Jalen Redmond's in a contract year, if you will, too. We don't know what that future looks like. So he's playing for a contract, if you will, too. Even though he's an RFA, he's still playing in a contract year. So we have a lot of question marks that are out there. And I think one of the biggest ones are on defense. I think really the thing I feel more comfortable about is our offense. I mean, yes, I have to hope that our offensive
besides the quarterback,
our offensive line stays healthy.
Yes.
But, I feel comfortable in the fact that whether it's JJ or whether it's Kyler, we should have better quarterback play this year. I can't imagine that we would have 2 consecutive years with the kind of health issues. I pray not. But with a healthier
we had the
second
most line combinations behind the Chargers last year. I just mean statistically, you can't just keep having that much bad luck. And, again, Darisaw says it's the healthiest he's felt since before it. Obviously, O'Neal, I think, is there. Donovan Jackson gets another kind of year there.
Fry should be healthier.
So, he's coming a year again off of that bone. Again, had a little bit more. I think we all felt like he was going to do a little bit more, but also in his defense too, is he's got a rotating spot on his right. He had a rotating left on his spot with Ryan Kelly. So again, it was just like, can we just get some stability, again, on that offensive line? And again, like I also will say too, is I'm really excited about Nolan Teasley and just that his mentality of, again, he seems to have that mentality of the trenches. And I know a lot of us Viking fans have been, again, pounding on that for, again, decades, it seems. And so I think like, you can look at what honestly, that's how the Seahawks did it. Obviously, again, we look to even like the Lions, again, there is that mentality of building that out. And, again, we have put a lot of resources into some of those, lines and get that back now.
Yeah, and I like the different guys that he's bringing in. And some of you guys may say, "Hey, Ryan Pace isn't, the guy that we want in here. How should he be able to give any advice on anything?" You guys also have to realize that Ryan Pace got to where he was because he was successful in doing well in organizations to help build organizations, and that's why he was a strong candidate previously. And I think by adding him, what Nolan Teasley is doing is putting smart guys around him that can help him do some of the analysis. That way he can make the right decisions for the organization as a whole. And I think one of them that he's going to have to tackle right away is going to have to be whether or not we re-sign Brian O'Neill. And
Yep.
yes, we drafted an offensive tackle, but Caleb Tieran, we don't know if he can play and start in this league at right tackle. And you have 1 year left on Brian O'Neill, who's been the most reliable offensive line, arguably most reliable player for the Vikings over his tenure here. And
well, then if you talk about the captain, again, and the leadership qualities or whatever, which we all know, and then you just lost CJ Ham, which is a huge part of it. Like those are qualities. And again, especially when you're talking about, again, us as an organization that have really invested a lot into, again, like the culture and everything, those things do play a big part into it.
Absolutely. And when you had as many injuries and issues on your offensive line last year, I would think that has to be an issue of importance for Nolan Teasley to tackle, probably sooner than later. Now, we saw, and, it doesn't sound like he plans to hold out, but you saw him kind of sitting out a lot of our mini camp practices. I have to assume that a lot of that has to do with contract related stuff. And, you don't know where your future is. So I'm hoping he addresses that. But I do like the people that he's trying to surround himself. He's not saying, "Hey, I can do it all." He's trying to, he's made some changes within the staff, on the scouting front as well. So we'll have to see what it all looks like under Nolan Teasley. But obviously, I think a lot of the signs that we're seeing already from him are positive. And so I'm excited for the Nolan Teasley era, if you will. He knows what it takes to he's seen a winning organization over in Seattle and what it took to build that. And hopefully he brings some of that here.
Yeah, no, again, I agree. And again, I'm really excited about him. And like the thing with like bringing someone like Ryan Pace and some of those, I know we can make the memes and the jokes or whatever, but I could tell you what, sometimes, again, owning a business in there, and yes, it's nowhere near running $1 billion franchise or organization. But the point being is there's some, again, just, dynamics that start to kind of happen that it's good to know why didn't that work out or what was your guys' thinking, again, there and using that. So guys, it's not like Ryan Pace coming here and making on all the decisions. It's actually good to have good data points as well as wrong or, again, things that didn't work out. So you can talk about that. I mean, we do all that at a time within our businesses is we don't hit, again, like 1,000 every time that we're up to bat and stuff like that. So I think sometimes you have to remember that a little bit too. Plus, what I loved about Nolan Teasley too is a few years ago, The Athletic always does a lot of those polls, a lot of anonymous ones, and one of them is who's kind of the best like scout player personnel kind of mind or whatever, and he was the only assistant GM even listed that people named. Two people in the league named him as the best. Again, just kind of scouting mind out there amongst others, again, even his boss and everything like that. But I said it was quite amazing that an assistant GM got 2 votes for that and was the only non-GM in that entire poll that got votes. So I think that's kind of cool too.
I think it's time that we go into the new segment that you haven't seen yet, Ben, and this might hold some kind of nostalgia for you as well. But let's check to see what's going on in the NFC North. So
I like it,
Ben. The new segment I have is what's going on, and this is something outside of Vikings news, but it affects the Vikings. So just taking a trip around the NFC North, and then getting your opinion once we're done with this, as far as how you see the division finishing. But Green Bay Packers, so they have some different things that they're stepping in. They don't have a healthy Micah Parsons. Tucker Kraft might be there versus the Vikings in Week 1. And just, is Jordan Love ready to take that he had some really good steps or stats that showed that, hey, he definitely improved. But is he ready to take the Packers to the next step, especially if Micah Parsons and a huge piece with Tucker Kraft are both coming off injuries? And, what's your outlook on the Packers?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got a lot of, making things up in the open. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of shocked to see Christian Watson get that type of deal. I think, what is it, the first $100 million deal for someone that didn't have 750
Yeah.
yards receiving, again, within there. But I think that's kind of my thing a little bit is they've got a lot of kind of pieces of that. I think they're projecting to take the next step. Let's be honest, we do that kind of as well. But it's going to be kind of interesting because I think in my opinion, they need a lot of things to go their way in order to get to where they kind of are, more so than I'd say some of the other ones in the NFC North, just because of like the injuries. And you're talking injuries to some of the top kind of key kind of people, as well as looking to take that next step to justify a contract, to justify, again, some of those kind of decisions. So again, it's sometimes hard for me to talk about because I hate Green Bay with a passion, and just, you know what I mean? Like, everything like that.
We all do,
exactly. Like we all do. And so it's just like, like I hate even, there. But, again, the one thing too is it's like, they always seem to be right there, and they seem to, again, I think, they seem to put some things kind of together. They're in the hunt. They've got a young, again, kind of core that kind of comes. And so, I think, like honestly, us in the NFC West, by far the hardest divisions in football, in my opinion. And I think like top to bottom, you could argue ours, because if someone were to say any one of us wins the division, I don't think you could argue much about it. Obviously, you're not going to say the same thing about the Cardinals. So I think that's just what's really, again, kind of interesting. And I will say, I think, Green Bay and Chicago, I feel like are getting a ton of the publicity, again, out there. And you can give them, because they both went kind of the playoffs last year. But I think they have a much harder way to the top than some, again, would maybe agree with me.
But all of them have question marks, and you take a look at, like I said, with the injuries, you also got, a new defensive coordinator, which is probably a plus for them potentially, with Jonathan Gannon coming in. I mean, not like their previous defensive coordinator, who's now a head coach. What Hafley wasn't a good defensive coordinator, but you have a new defensive coordinator. We'll see how that affects their game. We still don't know, like, is there going to be any ending result that negatively affects the Packers with Josh Jacobs?
I was just going to say that. So he could be gone by the time we start. Tucker, Micah Parsons for the beginning of the year.
And
Sean Mannion leaving.
Good starting running back, or a backup behind him, really. So that'll be interesting if he is out. And then, we move on to the Lions. The Lions have questions. The Lions ended up getting swept by the Vikings last year, and they were on a down year.
Yep.
They didn't make, that was a team that was absolutely, yes, they lost their offensive coordinator, and that seemed to sting a lot more than what we thought. But they have a new offensive coordinator this year, and I think that that's probably going to help them a lot this year. But again, they have questions to answer of, can they answer the call and get back in a competitive? Now, they are playing a fourth place schedule, and I think that absolutely factors in when you start looking at what the Lions have on their schedule and who they have to play. But they couldn't win inside the division last year. Step one, you got to prove you can win in the NFC North and come out with a winning record in your own division if they want to have a chance. But outside of, the NFC North, they have a softer schedule, that really lines up nicely for the Lions to really have a bounce back season, in my opinion. What say you, Ben?
No, I was gonna say, like since we tied with them and won the tiebreaker, we get to face the 49ers instead of the Cardinals. Like, as much as I'm excited, I'm going to go to the Mexico City game, but I'll tell you, like, if I had to pick just for, a team's sake or a record's sake, I would take the Cardinals. And so they have a couple of those. To be honest with you, the Lions are the ones that I would say, again, are our biggest challenge, there, because like you said, I think they had a lot of things turn over last year that now they've been able to settle. They dealt with a lot of injuries. They didn't even have some weird kind of bad luck. And then they still were just like us, essentially a game out to, play here or play there. And I think that Chicago and Green Bay got to kind of capitalize a little bit on some of that kind of stuff. And so for me, I think the Lions go back to like our biggest, again, like just, hurdle to kind of go over. Plus, like I would just say too, is when a team consistently builds through the trenches, you can cover up some of those, again, either down years or deficiencies and stuff like that too, that the Lions have smartly kind of done. So.
They may not have the aforementioned Kirby Joseph to start the year. And, we have to take a look at the Lions backfield. No David Montgomery. So Sonic and Knuckles is no more. Isaiah Pacheco is not David Montgomery. So we'll have to see how that affects how they utilize Jahmyr Gibbs, keeping him fresh, and how much Pacheco, kind of steps in, or if he has to step in that lead back role, if for some reason Jahmyr were to miss any time. We move on to the Bears, and we talked about the scheduling. Well,
Yep.
guess what? The Bears last year were also very fortunate to play a fourth place schedule last year, finished at the top of the North. Well, now they have to face a first place schedule this year, and they still have to face all their opponents in the NFC North. They lost some defenders on the defensive side of the ball. They ended up drafting Dylan Thieneman, who a lot of us thought was going to end up with Minnesota.
Yep.
So, Ben Johnson gets a second year with Caleb Williams, and we'll have to see, no DJ Moore, bigger role for both Roma Dunze and also Luther Burden, who steps up
Yep.
into that DJ Moore role, who really is, his game is DJ Moore. So he steps into that role, but behind them, they're a little bit light now in the receiver game. Now they do have obviously two really good tight ends with Colson Loveland and Cole Kmet. In a good running back situation with Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift. So they have a good offense. I think their question mark is going to be defense. Can they have as many takeaways that really helped them win games last year, and winning in the last seconds of games and being on the right side of those wins to really, seemingly, a punt return away where they may not have been in the playoffs last year. It could have been the Vikings.
Yep. No, again, and I think too is, when you look at it, and again, we've had a couple seasons like this, so super fun, where you're winning in these crazy, again, like you're defying statistics, you're defying probability kind of ways. We know that that's not sustainable. We've had other seasons kind of collapse. We've had, again, to go off of one of the first ones, remember 2022, it's hard to sustain that. And we've even seen that here. Like I think we're all talking about this, again, like we have the high year, the down year, the high year, the down year. Now, again, a variety of reasons, but everybody wants to be as consistent. So this will be kind of a big test, but also just looking at how they did it last year, some of the changes that have kind of been made, and just now with the schedule and stuff like that. Like, I honestly would not be surprised at all if they finish in the fourth place. Now, do I think they're only going to win like 5 games and be, again, there? No. I think that, Ben Johnson has really started to change that culture, has added kind of a new thing. I think it will depend on too, is like, yes, Caleb Williams definitely improved from the previous year, but was pretty subpar his first year, showed promise. That's obviously what you want in a rookie, and everything, again, like that. But, again, to consistently get there, you got to take another step, again, that goes along with that, and not wait till the last 2 minutes and, again, play the Tim Tebow type of bowl, or like us, again, win in the last kind of minutes, one score kind of games. Like, it's just hard to sustain that.
Absolutely. Well, now I got to ask you, how do you think the NFC North is going to play out from top to bottom? Who's going to finish in first, down to fourth? How would you rank these 4 teams?
Well, so like I will say, again, we're going to go, again, number 1, just looking at what we did last year with playing 3 quarterbacks, one of them being Max Burrows, were in some, again, really just struggle at the quarterback kind of position. So I definitely think that we go at the top. Then I think it's Lions, then Green Bay, then Chicago.
And I'm very, very close with that too. I actually just have your top 2 switched around. I actually think the Lions are going to finish in first. I just think they have a really soft schedule outside of the NFC North, which is really going to aid them to possibly a 13 to 14 win type of season, in my opinion, which is really lofty. But I think the Vikings, I have them pegged at an 11 win season, so I have them coming in second. So 11-6, I think, is very achievable with the way that our offense is kind of formulated, and I think we're going to have a very healthy, a healthier season than what we did last year. I think the question mark is actually on our defensive side of the ball, and we'll see if we can still be a top 10 type of defense this year, and not top 5 like we were last year. I think the question is, can we even be a top 10 defense this year? So Flores has to work some of his magic. And then I agree with you. I think Packers number 3, and I think I have the Bears falling all the way to 4th this year, playing a tougher schedule. I don't think that they have the ability to. You can't rely on having as many leading the league in takeaways and having as many takeaways as they did last year, resulting in wins. You can't guarantee yourself, especially when they lost some key defensive players,
Yep.
that you're going to have that many takeaways again playing better opponents.
Yep. No,
So
yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think one other thing that also is kind of interesting with us too is, and I hope we can kind of get out of this, sometimes it's mitigating or it's different various circumstances, but we also seem to, and I feel like this even predates KOC and everything,
mhm.
but it seems like we play very well or we have those good seasons when no one's expecting anything of us. And it's like, and so obviously we need to get over that hump of when the expectations are there that we're going to win the division or that we're going to win 10, 11, 12, 13 games, that we do it. But it's kind of nice because, I mean, a lot of people are picking the Vikings to finish fourth. I think just it's funny because we're forgetting that, again, I know you're talking about the quarterback situation, but I think we all could put some good money on that. It can't really be worse than last year. Yes, knock on wood. But just the probability, if you're playing the probabilities or whatever, of looking how dreadful some of those games were. And we still won 5 games to end the season. We still were one player, one game, again, out and stuff like that. And so now if we can just get, again, average to, again, kind of above average, which of course we'd love higher than that. And that could take us to another step further. So I think that's why I
Absolutely.
think we're the biggest wild card, I think, just because obviously the quarterback, like, who Chicago is,
Hmm.
again, you take away the injury kind of thing, even Green Bay, you know who they are, but just take away the Green Bay thing. Or the injury thing, same thing with Detroit. We're kind of the biggest wild card there. And I just feel confident in where that wild card kind of value comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we had our special guest on today, Skol Marketing CEO Ben Theis, and again, Ben, uh, we want to give you another shout out again. If you're not already following him, he's a huge Vikings fan, and obviously they have a great business with Skol Marketing that's not only doing some great things to local businesses and throughout the community in Minnesota, but also helping connect us with Vikings legends like Chuck Foreman, Tommy Kramer, and others. So make sure that you check them out, skolmarketing.com. Ben, I hope we can do this again. I really had fun. I enjoyed this, and you can see that and I love that picture of you on the top with the Vikings helmet. But just
Yeah,
your
that's my
passion,
bio.
your passion is just it's very evident to myself and everyone else that's watching this. So I hope we can have you on again, and
Yeah, love to.
hopefully you enjoyed being on the Vikings Playbook podcast. And
I
uh,
did.
I'm hoping I can do something like this again, visiting your guys' studio. I think it was an awesome opportunity. And again, make sure Vikings fans are making that push for Chuck Foreman, Hall of Fame in 2027. Be loud. We need to get the Vikings organization's attention on this to make sure that they're behind Chuck in 2027. Let's get him to the next level, which is putting on that gold jacket where he deserves to be. So please make sure that you guys are checking out what Ben's doing and some of the push that they're helping to do with Sports Legends USA, and making sure that it's known that Chuck Foreman deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, guys. And if you're not already subscribing and you're not following us, well, if you want a chance to win a Jordan Addison autographed jersey, you need to make sure to follow us on Vikes Playbook on YouTube. Once we get to 250, which we're almost there now, so we're getting really close to it. So just make sure that you're sharing this stream, that you're subscribing if you want an opportunity to win that. And I have a lot of other giveaways that I plan on doing yet this season, but you can't win any of those if you're not already a subscriber. So make sure that you guys are doing that. And then, like I said, next Tuesday at 1 p.m. CST is the plan to have Kyle Sloter, former Vikings quarterback who recently was golfing with Harrison Smith. We have questions for you, Kyle. Next Tuesday, make sure that you join us on the Vikings Playbook. And Two Tone, are you still in the chat? I want to thank everybody that's been in the chat today. I know it's a weird time, having this in the afternoon on a Tuesday, but I appreciate you guys tuning in. But Two Tone, you still here? I don't know if he's still here. Usually we do a card break.
Oh, cool.
It's a weird time. We usually have quite a few that are in on it on Tuesdays where I have them pick player and a team, and we do a card break. But Two Tone, you've been really active in the chat today, and I appreciate you following and tuning in on an unregular time. So I haven't opened it yet, but this is going to you, Two Tone. So make sure that you message me, send me an address. I'm just going to go ahead
That's
and
cool.
send this out to you. So this is going to you too, Tone. Ben, thanks again. Any last words that you have for the audience?
No, I want to thank you for having me. As you kind of said, just a little continuation. If you want to see all the players that we're working with, all the appearances, any of the memorabilia, if you guys are interested in having, again, Dante Culpepper or Jake Reed or Chuck Foreman, Stu Voigt, all these guys that we kind of work with, if you ever, again, are open into hosting them or having them be a part of either your business or just personal things, we love to kind of put some cool community things together. Go to sportslegendsusa.com. That's where a lot of that is housed. Again, you can obviously reach out to me on Skol Marketing too, but you can see all of their, again, their pages. You can see all their specific contact information at sportslegendsusa.com. So, Steve, honestly, I had a pleasure. I always get reminded of how much I just love doing these things. And, I get asked questions here and there. So this is really just kind of fun. Would love to be on. And honestly, definitely talk with you offline. We'll get you back in the studio to talk to some of the other legends that we have and get them on for you too.
Absolutely. Just, once we sign off, just give me a few minutes of your time if you have that. And to all of you guys out there that are following, thanks for listening. Follow us on X, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. For Vikings Playbook and for Ben Theis, CEO of Skol Marketing, this has been your episode of Vikings Playbook, where your Sunday starts here. Until next time, guys, Skol Vikings, we're out here. Thanks again, Ben.